Okay, so what I'm going to do now is use some of this gray sandable primer from Krylon to fill in some of the imperfections that happen in 3D printing. You can see the filament lines and such. Sanded it with 150 grit sandpaper to get most of that out. This should fill most the rest of the detail in, and then if you sand it, you can get a pretty good finish for the final coat. Always use a paint respirator when doing this. Alright, so one coat for now, then we'll sand it and put another on in about, I don't know, 30 minutes. Okay, it's time to sand. I like to use this 220 grit flexible sandpaper. I think it helps sand the contours without digging in too much. I want to sand it all the way off, just want to smooth it out. That gets off most of the unevenness and fills in some of the crevices, and then we'll give it another coat here in a second. You want to take a towel and clean off the dust. You can see there's a lot of dust that comes off. You can see all the dust. Sometimes I'll hit it with a little compressed air. So our first coat will have filled in some of the unevenness, but you probably see a little bit of the 3D printing on there. It didn't quite fill it all the way in. Next coat would probably help out. There's still a few imperfections. I might hit that with some putty later and smooth it out for the final coat. I'll usually do 3 coats of primer. Okay, there we go. This is 4 coats actually total. I did 3, and then I would sand in between with 220 sandpaper, and then the last one I hit it with 150, and then smooth it a little more with 220, and then put the final coat down and hit it once more with 220. Before the final coat, there were some little pinholes that I filled in with modeling putty. That's a good way to get rid of any final imperfections. So now, to put the final color on, I use this Montana Gold Malachite paint. I think this is the closest out of the can BMO color I can find. Stuff's pretty finicky to work with. It will come out pretty heavy and it'll splatter. They do sell these additional tips you can replace. I'm using the what's called the level 2 fine skinning, which is this dark green with a black dot. I think that gives the best coat. It doesn't put out a lot of paint because you don't want to get splatters on it. That's what will happen if you do too much. Okay, here we go. We have the final paint job on the BMO. I think it turned out pretty good. I put a gloss coat on it so it shines pretty well. I don't know if you can see that, but it looks like vacuum formed plastic when you're done. You just do it right. And I also printed out and painted the arms and legs that go on BMO. The arms are mounted in the side holes, but there's going to be a servo inside where it attaches to the arm, and then the arms can wave back and forth. And since I wasn't quite sure exactly if they'd get in the way while you're playing a game, they'll swing up out of the way once you start playing a game to make clearance for the buttons. The buttons are just laser cut acrylic with these little backs on it, so they fit nicely into the holes here. These will be held in place by a circuit board that will have the actual switches behind there, and then you'll have an actual working button panel in front. The little legs here have little notches so that they will lock into place on the bottom, and then those can be moved out. There's no servos or anything to move those. You'll just have to move them out of the way manually. So for now, that's all the major body parts.